More fireworks on Capitol Hill as tempers flare at the confirmation hearing for President Trump's nominee for Deputy Attorney General.
If confirmed, Rod Rosenstein would then be the #2 man at the Justice Department. KCAL political reporter Dave Bryan has highlights of today's hearing and some other stuff too, right, Dave?
Absolutely. You know, sometimes during this hearing you had to look around and say, wait a minute, who's up for this job, right? Because you thought it was Jeff Sessions. It was supposed to be a confirmation hearing for the man who ultimately may be in charge of the Justice Department investigation into possible collusion with Russia to influence the outcome of the 2016 presidential election. But the most heated exchange focused on Attorney General Jeff Sessions and his faulty memory about his meetings with the Russian ambassador.
He answered a question I didn't ask. And for him to put this in his letter as a response is insulting.
With tensions rising in Washington, a confirmation hearing for Deputy Attorney General nominee Rod Rosenstein turned into an angry exchange when Senator Al Franken blasted Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who wasn't even present at the hearing, for not acknowledging he had 2 meetings with the Russian ambassador during his testimony in January.
He should come back and explain himself, Mr. Chairman. I think he owes that to us.
And I consider what Senator Franken asked Sessions at that late moment that story just come out as a gotcha question. And
it was not a gotcha question, sir.
It was, from the standpoint that he didn't know what you were asking about.
But I said that as I was asking the question. I said you haven't heard this, and I don't expect that you have heard it.
Senator, tell us.
Look at the tape, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
please.
Mr. Chair.
Why so tense? Well, since Attorney General Sessions has now recused himself from any role in the investigation of connections between the Trump campaign team and the Russians who meddled in the 2016 election, Rod Rosenstein would be overseeing the Justice Department investigation if he's confirmed. Rosenstein faced a flurry of questions from Democrats like Dianne Feinstein about whether an independent prosecutor should be appointed to take charge of the investigation.
So I'm trying to figure out what your bottom line is. I interpret that as a no. Is that fair?
Well, I don't know, Senator. I think the answer is I'm simply not in position to answer the question.
Asked by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham about his reaction to President Trump's tweets over the weekend that President Obama ordered his phones be wiretapped, Rosenstein danced around that question as well.
I certainly did read about the tweets that were reported over the weekend, yes.
What was your reaction?
I don't think it's appropriate for me to share my reaction, Senator. If the president is exercising his First Amendment rights, that's not my issue.
But from the White House to the Capitol, plenty of others were talking about the Trump wiretapping accusation against President Obama, including the presidential press secretary, who made it clear Mr. Trump is not backing down, despite the fact that not one scintilla of evidence has surfaced to support his charges.
Why would he withdraw it until until it's adjudicated? That's what we're asking.
No regrets of him about raising this accusation.
Absolutely not.
Democrats are furious.
Donald Trump is destroying the credibility of the office of president 140 characters at a time.
I have not seen that evidence.
House Intelligence Committee Chair Devin Nunes from Tulare suggests to reporters that they shouldn't take everything the president tweets literally, and they should cut him some slack.
As you all know, the president is a neophyte to politics. He's been doing this a little over a year. And I think a lot of the things that he says, you guys sometimes take literally.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was asked if he has seen any evidence to support the president's charge against Mr. Obama.
No, I haven't.
And Republican Senator Richard Burr, the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, says his committee hasn't found anything to investigate yet.
We don't have anything today that would send us in that direction, but that's not to say that we might not find something.
Now, the White House is calling on Congress to incorporate the president's wiretapping accusation against former President Obama into the investigations of Russian collusion with Trump associates to influence the outcome of the 2016 election. Press Secretary Spicer declared the president wants to respect the separation of powers and would not comment further until the investigation is completed.